Yeah, we're live. It's 12 and I'm finally back from my dyno testing adventure at West Tech Performance. Always great to get down there and see all those guys, see the Rick and Steve and Troy, Ish, Eric. Shout out to all those guys. Thanks for all their help. It was a it was a lot of hours and a lot of working, but that's what happens. That's how you get stuff done. You decide, hey, look, I'm going to make this happen, and you don't stop until that happens, and then you achieve your goal, right? That's all you have to do. So I was down there doing lots of testing. One of the tests, in fact, the video that I'm working on editing today and will go up today, is the sloppy stage, all of the cams. Sloppy stage 1, 1.5, 2, and 3. Tested all of those on the same 5.3 liter, so guys will be happy. And the cool thing is they'll be very happy with all of the data, and there's going to be a comparison between all 4 cams, so it'll be good information, and there'll be something for people to complain about. So really, it's a win-win. It'll be really good. Today we're going to talk about one specific aspect of that camshaft test. So we ran the sloppy stage 1, the sloppy stage 1.5, which I think is relative, or, relatively speaking, new. The sloppy stage 2 been around forever, and the sloppy stage 3. I don't know if Elgin introduced all those cams at the same time. If somebody knows in the comments, please let me know. Or if they introduced one before the other. I know Matt had over at Sloppy Mechanics had been obviously promoting that sloppy stage 2 for a long time. Guys been using that a lot. And these are all, basically these cams do what these cams do. There isn't ever one cam that I recommend for everything, because, we're picking camshafts for different applications, for different idle quality, for, my light fell here. For different for different idle quality, different converter usage, different pricing. If there's different pricing on these, we got different strokes for different folks. The guys have different needs. So Elgin grinds the sloppy stage cams, the original stuff. There are lots of people now that, offshore guys and stuff that are calling them sloppy stage cams because it's such a popular name. So you have to be a little bit careful about what you're getting. These are the actual Elgin cams. These are the OG sloppy cams. So this is 1, 1.5, 2, 2, and 3. And so for the poll today, I'm going to ask the following question. I know that there's only 3 in the thumbnail photo, but when they sent the box, there were all 4 of them. I just had one of them in the engine at the time. Which of the 4 sloppy cams torque on the 5.3 liter? Okay, which of the 4 sloppy cams made the most peak torque on the 5.3? And the 5.3 was equipped with trick flow 220 heads, but the truck intake manifold long tube headers. It was the L33 aluminum motor, stock intake manifold, but it did have aftermarket heads on it, only because they were already on there from a previous testing. And quite honestly, I didn't want to do another head test just so that I could do this test. So again, people will get things to complain about, which would be awesome. I'm sure we'll get comments. Oh, it'd be completely different than if it had the 799 heads on it. It wouldn't. The only thing that happens with the heads is that the starting point and the ending point will be the same. But you got all the guys that are here on the live feed already know that. But people that are watching this live feed after it airs, and you guys are watching it later on, please know that when you're testing something and it doesn't have the cylinder heads on it that you want, if they're ported heads, it just means that everything starts higher and ends higher. The relative differences are going to be very comparable. So what we did was run the sloppy stage 1, the 1.5, the 2, and the 3. So on this 5.3, which one of those 4 made the most peak torque? So let me make sure that I have that all there. Okay, which one of those made the most peak torque? Sloppy stage 1, 1.5, 2, or 3? Which one of those was the big torque number? and I'll give you a hint. It's very close. So let me know. Throw out some votes in there. These are cool tests because it shows a fairly big range of cam durations run on the same motor. So that's always good information. Much like other videos where I've done where we've run a big sweep of camshafts, you get to see not only if you are intuitive and you've been here, been watching this channel for any length of time and been hopefully involved in the live feeds and some of the discussions, you realize that when we run a cam that's a 206 and one that's a 236, you kind of know what happens now in between all those, especially when we have other data points. So in this case, we have 4 data points ranging from, mild up to wild. Let's say the sloppy stage 3 cam is a pretty good sized camshaft as far as cams go. And by the way, it does fit stock piston to valve clearance, obviously. But you have lots of data points in between there. So it tells you what other cams will do. If you have a Texas speed cam and it's kind of like that, it's kind of going to do that. It's not going to vary dramatically unless you vary the valve events dramatically. It's not going to vary it. And for all of you tight LSA guys, if you tighten up the LSA, different things are going to happen. But it gives you lots of information, not just the information that these specific cams give you. If you have other 206 cams or 212 cams or 236 cams or whatever they are, they're going to be very, very comparable. They're going to be much more like the ones that we have than the ones that we don't. So a lot of guys still are under the assumption that, there's like custom specific cams that are going to just all of a sudden magically do great things. And that's just not the way that these cams work. If you have cams that are similar to this, they're going to be very, very comparable. In fact, as we'll see here, you're going to see that all of these cams in different ranges are very, very comparable. So it's pretty interesting. But again, that's why we do testing and it shows you, much like intake manifolds, and we're talking about intake manifolds, and you want to run in a specific RPM range, that the intake manifold is going to do things in a specific RPM range, and you should pick it for that. There's going to be no intake short of a dual runner or a multi-runner thing that's going to be really good down low and really good up top. Camshafts are much the same, unless we have Honda VTEC stuff where we have 2 distinct profiles. And then if you toss in variable cam timing, just, as an added bonus, you can get an even broader range of effective cam timing for a combination. And then if you have variable intake manifold, you can, add some more adjustability for the effective RPM range. That all that would be great. But the cams show you that in this particular test for the Elgin cams, this kind of testing shows you why you would want, which one of these cams would fulfill your needs for specific RPM ranges and usage, obviously idle quality and all the things that we talk about with camshafts. It's very important when you're picking those, not just to pick one. Which one makes the most power? Well, the biggest cam makes the most peak power. That shouldn't come as any big surprise. There isn't going to be a magic smaller cam that's going to make more than the bigger cam does. Usually one with more duration makes more power. It makes more power at the top of the RPM range. But is that the only thing you want from your cam? If it is, just go for it and pick the big cam, make the big power, brag about the big power, and then suffer the big power consequences with less low speed power, less response, and you don't have enough converter or whatever, or enough gear or whatever. So, all those things are trade-offs with camshafts, but that's why we do all this testing so that you guys can see, hey, what's going on? Why is this doing this? What does this do? Which one of these should I pick? Well, in the end, it's always going to come down to what kind of compromise do I want? Do I want to lose the power up top, but have all the fun and drivability and hopefully better throttle response down low? Do I want the reverse of that? Am I willing to put up with the idle jumping around? Do you want the chop? And then you want the big charge on the big end? Am I going to rev this thing out? For me, like for my truck, I would want all the power below 5,000 RPM. A lot of times, and that usually means a milder camshaft. If we don't care about stuff that's happening at 6 or 65, then that usually means milder cam timing. The stock cam actually works fairly well there, but there would be better camshafts that I could pick that would work better in terms of power there. But again, also the power thing might not be the only deal that you're looking at. You might be looking at fuel mileage. You might be looking at idle quality. All of those things are important in choosing a camshaft. So let me know on the poll question, which one of the cams, sloppy stage 1, sloppy stage 1.5, 1.5, sloppy stage 2, or the sloppy stage 3, which one of those makes the most peak torque? And I'll answer in just a little bit, and then we can talk about, what the effects are. But in the meantime, we'll see what you guys got going on. Yes, I am back. It was a good time, but it's a lot of, when I'm there dyno testing, it's a lot of starting early in the morning and working until until midnight. New Zealand's in the house. SC South Carolina, okay, or Southern Comfort. I'm new. I'm so happy. Thanks for the information. I'm doing God's work ever since 3.8 liter stuff. Well, we ran, one of the things I did while I was down there is we ran the earlier blower, the Gen 3 blower, on a V8 to see how it did. And it did very well. So it's cool. Wisconsin, it's cold. Yeah, it's getting cold here too. Not Wisconsin cold, just California cold. So it was in, I think when I left West Tech in the morning from Mark Sanchez's house where I stay. And shout out to Mark. Thank you again to all the guys at West Tech too, and to people, and to Mark and his family and his wife Debbie for cooking, making me dinner. I think it was about 38 when we left, so it was that kind of cold, but not like 10 or 5 or snowing kind of cold. Get the micro squirt wired up, and mostly watching having problems with the Hall effect sensors. Kenosha. Okay, yeah, that's cold weather. Which truck intake? This one ran the early truck intake because the L33 came with the early truck intake and not the Trailblazer SS. I have an idea for LS build for views. I don't really do stuff based on what I think will do lots of views. I usually do it based on what I think the questions that the market answered. But if you want to throw stuff out, just throw stuff out. I only see a yes or no. Yeah, did I not put the poll in there right? I don't think I did. Which of the 4 sloppy stage cans makes the most torque? Well, yeah, obviously that's not a yes or no question, so I didn't phrase that properly. So I'm actually going to end the poll there. I'm going to rewrite the poll. We'll break it down to 2 of them, I guess. But you guys can answer. You guys can answer in the comments. So we're going to end our poll, which doesn't make any sense. I'm going to have to rewrite that. Okay, did the sloppy stage 3 cam make more peak torque than the sloppy stage 1 cam? So did the big cam make more torque than the little cam? How about we'll do that poll? Multi-poll today. It's poll on poll action. Let's see. I'm scrolling. It just says yes or no. Running an Edelbrock 2221 with 520 lift and an air gap. What's an Edelbrock 650 AVS making 600 horsepower and 6,000 dyno? The lift, so Joe, when you're talking to somebody about camshafts, the lift is almost irrelevant. I had this conversation with Brule while we were down there. We're like, why do people tell us what the lift is? Because that tells us almost nothing about the camshaft. The single biggest important variable in the intake manifold or in the camshaft that tells us about what the cam is intake duration. But if you tell us the duration at 50 of the camshaft, we can figure out 90% of what the cam is going to do. And then the LSA and then the lift are in that order of importance. What is a 5.3? A 5.3 is a 324, 25-inch LS motor. A 293 is a 4.8. That's right. Nags Head, North Carolina. I've not heard of that. That's cool. 5.3 is the 324 or 25. Doesn't matter because the V10 makes more torque than the 5.3 ever could. NA. Don't kill my dreams, Richard. There's a cam that's bestest and makes diesel torque and top fuel horsepower. That would be, I want to see that cam. That's a really good one. Maybe if I tighten the LSA, it will do both of those, right? Matt, what's going on? I use a manual, so that doesn't matter to me. What company makes the Jags grind? I don't know. I'm a stick car guy. My LS stuff, I have a stock bottom end. I'd like to stay between max power 4,000 and 7,200. You're gonna let your daughter drive your El Camino. Maybe the smaller cam is a better place to start. Sloppy stage 1.5. Let's say the smaller cam. Brought my first LS powered vehicle. Have plenty of Fords right now. Need a sloppy stage 2 for one of my 6 liters. Washington's in the house, -5 in Illinois. So far you're winning, Tim. But you know what's good on -5 days in Illinois? Pizza. Warm pizza. Sloppy stage 1.5. Kenosha. I find the poll too complex. I get it. I know, that's why I changed it. Got a 225, 235, 227, 235. I'm interested to see how the low speed torque output is. What's a sloppy cam? I don't know what a mushroom cam is. Why did the 5.3 make more power than the 4.8 with the same supercharger? I thought they'd be more comparable if the blower spins at the same speed. The blower speed is going to dictate the potential airflow of the supercharger. One of the other things that dictates the potential airflow of the supercharger and ultimately the power is the power output of the motor that you're applying it to. So if you are applying that supercharger to a 300 horsepower motor or applying it to a 400 horsepower motor, spinning the blower the same, if you're starting with 400 NA and then adding the blower to that with the same blower speed, that combination will make more power. That's why a 5.3 makes more power NA, and that's why it makes more power under boost. Is there a fuel volume module that can read fuel consumption in real time? Yes, there's a fuel flow turbine that can tell you what fuel flow is. I was gifted some Summit Racing gift cards for Christmas, considering getting my hydraulic roller lifters for my LS 408 stroker. Any recommendations? Just making a solid driver. We normally use comp stuff, but there's probably lots of roller lifters that will work for the Fords. Oh, this is for an LS. We normally run the stuff that comes from the wrecking yard with the stock stuff, but most guys use LS7 lifters, Delphi ones. The one with the proper spec to block and spread the LSA would be a rocket. I don't know what that is. Richard, could you revisit the intake tests with the L33? Pick a cam and run the stock intake as well as the Fast 90 and Fast 102. People still think the 102 is too big for a 5.3. It's not. The opening into the manifold doesn't dictate too big or too small on a long runner intake, on any intake really. The 102 will make more than a 90 will, or 90. It's actually a 92. Any other guys' motors fun recently? Yes, as a matter of fact, I brought home a small block 400 with me, and that will be run next. What cam can I put in my 6-liter and still tow my 8,000-pound camper? Lots of them. A truck Norris or anything small like that works fine. 261, 266. Love the hard work and time you give to us. There's about 2 feet of snow outside. I have a junkyard 5.3 on a stand. I know you want to come by and build this engine on the snow fort. Yes. Shop builds are too common now. So you want to build it out in the snow? Nag's Head, North Carolina is 1 hour from Virginia Beach. Okay. I love the Boss 2. Why are you concerned about the fuel usage? Why do you want fuel flow numbers? The computer will actually give you injector flow numbers. I'm a dinosaur, still use small block and big block stuff. I'm putting together a 400 small block right now. I do lots of big block and small block stuff too. Love the Boss 290 content. Fun little 7875 K24 dyno update. 971 horsepower, 612 foot-pounds, round out of fuel. How'd to call it for the day? Oh, that's cool. On the which 7875 were you running? Glad there are good people out there locally. Richard, is reverse cam pattern work on a 4-valve head? Lots of them, lots of the factory cams and some of the aftermarket cams for like Coyotes and other things have reverse patterns. I would still like to test whether or not that's optimum. It'd be cool to disprove the old myth of stock 400 small block bottom ends only able to hand X amount of power. Yeah, I'm doing something specific with this build. It's a 2-bolt block. Um, but we will be doing upgrades on it after this. Why do people think I've never heard a myth that 400 small blocks can only handle 500 horsepower? I've never heard of that on a small block Chevy. We hear that on the 302 Ford stuff, but when are you going to get the Magnum back? I don't know. Soon. JLM, I have no idea what you mean by thoughts. L7 lifters, L6 springs, 209, 217. Yeah, that will all work. Good daily cam for a 2019 Ram 5.7. Brian Tooley has new Hemi cams. The small ones that he has would work good for that. All of the Euro camshafts, like cat cams, all of them are reverse. It makes me wonder if they've tested cams with more exhaust duration. I don't know if they have. I don't know if that's they just think everybody thinks that that's the thing, and like a lot of the factory cams came that way, and so they just continue doing that and add duration and add lift, but keep the splits the same. I don't know if people have tried going the other way, and maybe on a 4-valve head, maybe that's the thing. Maybe their intake to exhaust flow relationship is so close that maybe that's a better thing. I know in a lot of cases, guys doing turbo stuff will tend to do that to get the turbo to be more responsive. But I still would like to see that tested. What cam would you recommend in a 406 Chevy small block in a Love truck? Well, the camshaft would depend on what you're trying to do with it. How do you want it idled? How do you want it to drive? Do you have, you know, power brakes and air conditioning and things? How much idle vacuum can you get away with? How much peak power do you want? What heads do you have? What intake? There's a lot of stuff that would go into choosing whatever camshaft you want. The reason I think about fuel usage, I'm sure that is. But if you're thinking about fuel usage, you're not thinking about, most people don't think about fuel usage like brake specific fuel consumption at wide open throttle. I can see being concerned about fuel mileage, but that has nothing to do with the fuel usage at wide open throttle. Have you tested any of the small block Chevy AFR Enforcer heads? They have at West-Tech, but I don't think that I have. I do have a set of Ford ones, though. BS 78, 75, DBB, dual ball bearing 128. Is it a VS Racing? Is it a Gen 2 or Gen 3? What is it? I have a Gen 2, and that worked well on the K24 that we did at what was it? Who are the Honda guys? The reason I think about fuel usage is because I'm more interested in efficiency than peak power. So what are you trying to get? Are you trying to get a brake specific fuel consumption number at wide open throttle, like guys are concerned about that are doing endurance racing? Or are you interested in fuel mileage? Which one of those is more important? Toy Street 704 342 gears, Sportsman 2 heads, 64 cc. Let's see, what was that? I can't remember the size of the motor now. Okay, so for a 406. And Carl, what intake manifold do you have on there? Oliver, I'm towing stuff. Okay, so if you're towing stuff, that's still all part throttle stuff for fuel mileage. Cast iron bow tie. On a camshaft, I would look at, if you're wanting to make power, something like a 236, 242 at 50 with mid 500 lift stuff for that 406 Chevy. Which one did you choose, 2-valve or 4-valve? I have both. I don't know which head I use. I don't know what motor you have, Amir. If I could figure out efficient setup I could do with a smaller engine with forced induction or a bigger engine with a smaller cam. The smaller engine with forced induction under cruise, the mileage should be better. But at a given power output, if you're using boost to make that power output where you would not be on a larger engine and it's NA, because on the larger NA engine, you'd be running a leaner fuel mixture than you would under boost. It probably would be the power consumption at higher power loads would be better on an NA combination. Gail Banks has a video where he talks about metering for fuel while testing superchargers. It's not hard to meter the fuel for wide open throttle, but the fuel usage under what he's talking about is not that. Are the L7 Delphi lifters very similar to the expensive Cadillac lifters? I watched a few uploads where they take them apart and they look close, but you guys know more. I don't know. I've never taken them apart and actually done any sort of verification on the dyno or any specific lifter testing. What changes would be required for LS2 to rev reliability to 7,000? Do you want to also make power there? Because the stock intake manifold is not going to want to make power at 7,500. The stock camshaft is not going to want to make power there either. So a stable cam profile and the right spring package is really all that you need to run to 7,500. And then the intake manifold that wants to rev up there also. Ported heads would help. Cast iron bow tie intake weighs a ton. Is that what it is? That's what intake manifold you have? Let's see, Andrew. I'm trying to see what your other question was. How would you make a static compression of 12-to-1 or more run on 93 octane? You can certainly do that. I don't know why you're wanting to do that. My question would be why? Why are you trying to do that? But you can easily make 12-to-1 static work, but with a really big, you do it with a really big camshaft. And you take away the required amount of timing. What's the biggest cam you can run with a stock torque converter in a Gen 453 truck? I understand the stage 2 might be too big. Yes. Something small is going to work. In my opinion, I think even a truck Norris is too much on a 5.3 with a stock converter. I was just curious about what you think about the cam. I've never tested that Skog and Dickey cam, if that's what it is. And is it a 261, 266 at 50? Need to know what engine part number corresponds to sloppy stage 1 and 1.5. The cam numbers are, the sloppy stage 1.5 is an 1840. The sloppy stage 1, no, wait a second. Sloppy stage 1 is an 1838. Sloppy stage 1.5 is an 1839. Sloppy stage 2 is an 1840. And sloppy stage 3 is an 1841. I've got 12 to 1 run, 91 octane. Yeah, that can all be done. It's just all you have to do is take timing away until it doesn't detonate, and then or put lots of camshaft in it so you get the dynamic compression down. Advice on power combinations on a 205 C6 6-liter. So does it have to fit in under a Corvette chassis? 700 wheel horsepower is going to take boost. So any kind of ported head, a Nettlebrach, I mean, a airflow research head, or a stock rec port head, a ported rec port head. There are dozens of cylinder heads that will work for that combination. A camshaft is anything from a Truck Norris cam up to the biggest stage 4 cam that will fit available piston and valve clearance will work. Any of the superchargers will get you to 700 horsepower. You could put a Torque Storm on there. You could put a Vortec. You could put a Pro Charger or a Kenny Bell if they still make an LS kit. A Magnuson, a 2650. And any of those, all of those will get to 600 horsepower. I mean, 700 horsepower. I believe lower RPM torque is better for towing. Peak torque 1,000 to 1,500 RPM higher than the cruise RPM. Is a 1600cc B3 Mazda, I can increase it to 22,000. Is it I would run a 4-valve twin cam motor. It will make more power than a 2-valve head. I didn't know that you had the choice of putting both of those on that motor. Richard, have you done a test of a high duration cam with a truck intake versus a racing intake and a stock cam? So have we run like a short runner intake manifold on a stock cam to see how that combination does versus the truck intake and a bigger cam? I don't know if I've done that specifically. The only time I tend to track fuel consumption is when I'm building a boat engines. It determines how far I can go before I have to turn back. Yeah, that's true. Third rule, third out. Yeah, third back, third in case of emergencies. That's right. Matt, you think that more static compression brings more noise? 0353, do I need to gap the rings if I stay under 12 pounds? The boost and ring gap are not correlated. Are not directly correlated. What tests are you doing on 400? Right now, I'm just putting it together in a specific way to represent a specific thing. And then later on, we're going to do upgrades to it. I was rewatching your tests on the Truck Norris versus the Sloppy Stage 2. I think I made a bad choice with the Sloppy Stage 2, considering I wanted a street turbo wheel to stay under 6,000. Yeah, it would have been a better choice to have the Truck Norris cam for that combination. But I don't think you're going to do bad with the Sloppy Stage 2. Well, it compensates to lower dynamic compression. Yeah. I just jumped on the stream and I've missed the lead up to your question. Anything I should know before I answer the question? The poll question is, did the Sloppy Stage 3 cam make more peak torque than the Sloppy Stage 1 cam? And this was done on a 5.3 with a truck intake manifold, long tube headers, and it also had trick flow heads on it, although that won't really change the answer to this question. So with the micro squirt, I won't have a knock sensor. What would be a safe timing to start with? 14 PSI, E85, 8.2 to 1. TurboCentric, do you know what that motor wants to run in terms of timing NA? Boat cams are specific to boats. Well, and then it when you put the engine in a boat, it becomes a boat engine. So therefore it also have a boat cam, but otherwise, no, the cam is Usually what, at least with boats, the thing about camshafts has nothing to do with it being a marine application or anything other than potentially having a wet exhaust. That would be specific to the boats if they have a wet exhaust and where you don't want reversion of water being coming back up into the exhaust. Stock cam, short runner intake versus truck intake. I need to go back and look and see if I've done an intake change on a stock cam. I don't remember if I have. I can tell you that the better combination is going to be the bigger cam and the truck intake manifold. I want a cam to make my blown 351 Cleveland give out a big block Ford torque curve. Your blown 351 Cleveland will already do that, right? High mileage and ring gap isn't always correlated either. Nope, it's not. I sheared a cam gear off my crane cam. Why buy that Motown block with a small block Chevy with LS heads? Why not just run an LS? I don't understand the oiling thing is definitely better um on the new block design, but not for what most people would be doing. $242, $248 at 50. Okay, that's a good size cam. Socket wide open throttle is 28. Yeah, if you're running E85, normally in the high teens or 20 is where I would be. And I would be less at below torque peak and at torque peak, and then the 20, 21, 22 maybe at the top of the RPM range. How's our poll doing? Did the sloppy stage 3 cam make more peak torque than the sloppy stage 1 cam? 60% are saying yes. So we can get to the answer for that. It did actually. The sloppy stage 3 cam made more peak torque than the sloppy stage 1 cam. On this combination, the sloppy stage 1 cam made 431.6, and it should tell you something that we're having to go to the decimal point as to how close these were. The sloppy stage 3 made 435.5 foot-pounds of torque. The sloppy stage 1 did it at 5,000 RPM, and the sloppy stage 3 did it at 5,400 RPM. So only a change of 400 RPM from the 1 to the 3 in terms of where peak torque happened. And the difference was only about 4 foot-pounds. So I don't even know if you'd be able to tell that. But the cam that made the most peak torque was the sloppy stage 1.5 because it made 435.6 foot-pounds compared to 435.5 foot-pounds. So essentially the same thing, but it had 0.1 foot-pounds more. If we made another run, it would be different by that amount. And then the sloppy stage 2 made 434.9 foot-pounds. So about a half a foot-pound less. So the sloppy stage 1 made the least amount of torque of all of them, but only by about 4 foot-pounds. All the others were right at 435 foot-pounds. The 1.5, the 2, and the 3 were all within a half a foot-pound of each other. So there is really no variance. And the sloppy stage 1.5 made peak torque at 5,000 RPM, the sloppy stage 2 at 5,100 RPM, and the sloppy stage 3 at 5,400 RPM. So all of the peak torques were, there's really nothing to choose between those in terms of peak torque. Now, where they made torque is going to be a different conversation, which we'll talk about in the video. But it just goes to show you that there's a lot of misconceptions about this. Oh, I got to get the small cam because I'll make more torque. Well, you will, maybe at some RPM range, but probably not more peak torque. Have you run a header test that includes tri-Y header, shorties, and long tubes? No, not tri-Ys. And again, the header test things like this are people want like universal answers for specific questions. So a header test like that, as with every header test, are really specific to the application. If we run a tri-Y header, when we run a 4-into-1 header, when we run a shorty header, there's going to be some generalities that we can get from that kind of test. But if the tri-Y header makes more power than the 4-into-1 does, it's not because that always happens. Or if it makes less power than the 4-into-1, it's not because that always happens. Or if it makes more torque or less torque than this other one, it's not because that's universal. People want universal. Oh, the tri-Ys are for torque. They're not. They could be. They could also not be. It depends on the actual tri-Y design, how they did their merge, what length that was, what diameter is, what RPM it is, what camshaft you're using, all of that stuff. The headers are like intake manifolds. You make them specifically for not just the engine combination, but actually the usage. Where do you want that to happen? But it's cool. I don't know RV cams of 60s and 70s thinking. It's not. It's just a designation for camshafts. Right now, an RV cam is called a truck cam. I mean, we call the LS versions of an RV cam, we call them truck cams now, but it's the same thing. They're all of these small duration camshafts. My dad had an RV cam in his Camaro. I threw that out, put a roller in SAP. Again, it depends on what you're doing. And the RV cam's like a 206, 212 cam, which would be kind of an RV cam. Now it's called a truck cam, is a good cam. That's a good gain, usually over factory camshafts, especially for some of those small block Chevy applications, which might have been in the 180s. It's a sizable gain, but still keeps power down in a low RPM range. Your tri-Y gets you chicks, Matt. I think you already have that taken care of. We're referring to the 1840s. Yeah, the Kennel. These are all the Elgin sloppy stage 1, 1.5, 2, and 3 cam. So 1838 to 1838, 39, 40, and 41. 60% sloppy stage 3. So your 60% guys, your 60%ers are accurate or right. I thought it was interesting that the 1.5, 2, and 3 they all essentially made the same peak torque. But they did not, however, make the same peak power. That was 40. Let's see. So I'm getting... Yeah, this will be good. I'm just looking at all the graphs now of the sloppy cams, and this will be really good information. It'll be really good information on effective usage here. Where do you want your power to happen at? And in this case, for a good portion of the curves, the cams are going to be the same. And people don't realize that. The foreign small block is a top secret project, Matt. Would you get power gains by bolting on a centrifugal supercharger to create vacuum in the exhaust? So you're gonna hook that to the inlet and destroy your blower by running exhaust heat through it? Yeah, it's not a good idea. Did you run the big cam from Summit? We ran one of the big nasty series cams from Summit, but it wasn't very big though. Would increasing the pressure difference increase pressure? Well, that's how headers work, actually. That's how the scavenging effect works. It actually puts a negative pressure wave. And actually helps draw air into the combustion chamber. if you could somehow help extract the exhaust out, that could be good. It's just so much easier to force air in. The gain that you would get from extracting exhaust out is not nearly as much as you would get from forcing air in. Can you make 700 crank horsepower with a 6-liter and GT45? Yes. The exhaust back pressure will be a little bit on the high side, but you can do that. I believe truck cams are more fuel efficient. You think, Human Tribe, you think truck cams are more fuel efficient than a stock cam is? I'd like to see an actual test, a cruise mileage test of a camshaft that got better fuel mileage than a stock cam does. I don't know if anybody's ever showed me. I hear like an anecdotal reference to something like that is not the same for me as somebody showing me actual data, but I'd like to see a cruise fuel mileage test to see if we could do something to the camshaft, either by changing the valve events or advancing or retarding the camshaft to do specific things. And I'm clicking. And I'm clicking. Let's see. It's possible to make 100 horsepower liter with 5.3 imported 799 heads. Yes, not without a problem. The 790 imported 799 heads will support over 600 horsepower, so they'll easily make 530 horsepower. Can't keep an exhaust on my 49cc two-stroke. Loosens up every time. I think I've damaged the threads on the jug. Now I need to rework it. I like to put on those, on the GoPed, I think we ended up putting studs in there. I think we ended up Loctiting studs in there. That way, if we were taking the pipe on and off, which we had a tendency to do, that we weren't constantly threading in and threading out the bolt. Leaving the stud in there and just putting a nut on there was a lot better. And then we would use, we tried lock nuts and pinch nuts. A lot of times the lock nut would end up melting, but we tried that to keep because the exhaust, there's a lot of vibration in that and it wants to loosen up. Engine Analyzer loves the Summit 8720 you like from the Sloppy Stage 2 versus World and the BTR LS3 Stage 4. What would your ideal compression range be for a Gen 353 if you had the choice to build E85, pump 93, and a turbo? Well, I would just run stock compression. We would run it at near 9-to-1 or 9.5-to-1. If I was trying to make lots of power, we would run higher than that. I just had Crowder make me some 4V cams, regrinding the stock Navigator cams. Can I give you specs and see what you think? Sure, but those guys know what they're doing with cams. And you can look at cams in the Comp Cams catalog and see. Efficiency usually falls to management. No, not necessarily. I mean, you would assume that the tune would be correct for trying to maximize fuel mileage, but I think that's a given. I'm curious to see what cam timing does, assuming that those things are already proper. running an 8720 in my L33, and it's excellent. That's great. There's lots of good cams out there. Will a built 5.3 motor from Summit hold boost? Any 5.3 motor will hold boost. I find it interesting that an engine analyzer somewhat lines up with your dyno testing. Well, you would think that when they did the modeling for that software, that they would have put the right information in there, and that when you get actual data, that it should correlate with what they're speculating. I was thinking 10 to 11 range. Okay. The more timing that you have on the pump gas side of things, the more the more static compression you have on the pump gas side of things, the more timing you're going to have to take away, and or the more cam timing you're going to have to add. So you're going to have what you're looking at is some sort of compromise there, no matter what you're doing. I have the BTR LS3 stage 4 in an LS3 to go in my Porsche 996. That should be good. It'll have an S475. Yeah, you're not going to go wrong with any sort of combination in an S475. Special Agent, what's up? 11 and up for 85, 10 for 93. Yeah, green bass. That works. You can epoxy it in there too. Is there an advantage in drag racing to have a peak of 900 horsepower at 9,000 RPM or 6,500 RPM? Had a friend tell me he preferred D-stroke 400 small block opposed to a stroke 350. Well, that the first part of your statement would be a discussion we could have, and then the second part of your statement would be a different discussion, because a D-stroke 400 or a stroke 350 is not a change between 9,000 and 6,500. How is the 87 compared to an 8719 R1 in terms of power and torque? I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know what those correlate to on the Summit cams. I don't know if those off the top of my head. Now I want to try 530 horsepower, my 5.3 for no absolute reason. So you want to make that NA. We already showed that on a stock bottom end 5.3 that those numbers are possible. You just need a ported head and a high RPM intake manifold, like a low ram, or we use the Trinity intake manifold from Brian Tooley. We put a little more compression in it, which helps. Does your injector formula work with E85? Yeah, but it has an E85 variable. Todd, what is your single turbo specs that you're giving me? Oh, okay. That's the 4-valve cam, right? So let's see. 278, 286 is a dual pattern cam. Is that not reversed? For a 544 valve? Those 278, 286 have to be advertised numbers, right? Those aren't 50 numbers. E85 around 100 to 105. 110 is what they're saying, but that probably varies with the actual ratio, because E85 from the pump could be anywhere from E50 on up. Why do Borg turbos sound amazing at high levels of boost? Have you run any of the Summit truck cams? Yes, we did. We ran in the comparison between the Truck Norris and the Chupacabra, we ran one of the Summit truck cams in that. I don't know what the 8719 does. I just saw that Richard had really good results with the 720, so I tried it in an L33 with the 7875, and it does exactly what he said it would. And all of the cams will do exactly that. Whenever we test the camshafts and whatever they do NA, that's going to be correlated under boost. I've run what you call the sloppy stage 3 cam in an LS2 and a stroke of 427. No complaints. Awesome cam. Would I put it in anything smaller than a 6-liter? It on this one, it made peak power at on the 5.3. It made peak power before 7,000. It made peak power at 68 or 6,900. I take it the Trailblazer SS would be sufficient for 500 NA horsepower. On a 5.3, you'd be hard pressed to make 500 NA horsepower with a Trailblazer SS. I mean, I think it could be done, but it'd be hard to do because it's where it wants to make peak power at. The RPM range that wants to make peak power at would be low. And it doesn't make as much power as a fast does. A fast, you could get to 500 a lot easier. And then these short runner manifolds even easier. I use a sloppy stage 3 and a 4.8 with a super short runner intake manifold. That had to be terrible. Where would the best cam fit? That's small. It's between a 1.5 and a 2. I'm trying to remember what the test description. 1.5. So the 1.5 is a 220, 224. So the best cam is actually slightly smaller than the 1.5 because it's a 219, I think. The duration at 50 is a 236, 244. Yeah, we've run cams like that I don't think I've done it I think I did it on the 544 valve because the Sean Highland stage 2 cams are probably in that range. And I think we even mixed and matched stage 1s and stage 2s. And I think we only did that not because we thought it was a good idea. I think that's all that they had available at the time. Makes you want to try a ported set of heads on the 5.3 with the BTR intake and a comp 231 cam. Yeah, that will put you up at 500. 486, 495 from the cam card. So it has more exhaust lift than exhaust duration. I mean, it has more exhaust lift than it does intake lift. And that's okay. Like on a dual pattern cam, even one that, for me, the dual pattern is favoring exhaust duration over intake duration. The lift, I'm actually not even concerned about. If there's a variation between intake and exhaust lift, and I don't really care which way it goes. Can you still use a dual plane with a bigger cam? Yes, you can, but the dual plane is just going to limit where the thing wants to make peak power. One more minute. So we're going to close out our poll at 61% saying yes, that made more peak power. Yes, made more torque, made 4 more foot-pounds. On the Big Bang test, the 6-liter that broke the rod, Were they Gen 3 or Gen 4? I've run both. I ran a Gen 3 6-liter Big Bang, and I also ran a Gen 4 6-liter Big Bang. The one that broke was a Gen 3. We broke a Gen 3 6-liter. In fact, it came from Chad Reynolds' Suburban engine. It was a 99 or a 2000 with 250,000 miles on it. And that one broke at 1482, I think. And then the Gen 4 is still alive. Any way to build more torque, low RPM, 5.3, Elm 7, like the Gen 1 small block has? Well, Gen 1 small block is going to be a 350, so it's bigger, so that helps a lot. And if you want more low speed torque on an LS 5.3, you can increase the displacement. You can increase the static compression. Camshaft is going to be hard to get more, depending on what you mean by low speed. I don't know where low is. Is it 1800? Is it 3500? Where is it? A much longer runner intake manifold would do it. Long tube headers will do it. Yes, a turbo in your LMG, Dylan, will definitely help with power, as it does with every combination. On that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I am back. I'm going to go work on the Elgin Cam video right now, and that should be up today. Tom, what's going on? And then lots of cool other stuff coming up, including carbureted M90 stuff, which I'm very excited about. I will see you guys all later.